I love using the Panarouter, but I want to make a cart for it to put it at a more comfortable height and store all the accessories. If you don't know what a Panarouter is, it's a machine that makes doing many different types of traditional joinery, like mortise and tenon joints, accurate, fast, and easy. But first, let me show you how it works. Everything is based off of center, and you don't have to do any sort of measuring. I adjusted the template holder for the thickness of the material to ensure that the bit is centered on the board. The half-scale ruler makes it easy to find the center of the material as well. I'm basing this cart on the plans from Panarouter and use their cut list to first cut all of the material down to size. The red zero stops allow you a reference point to butt the material against and get it lined up with the edge of the table perfectly. I'm using some scrap offcuts to act as a bridge to clamp the piece in place. I brought the bit up until it touched the material and am able to set the depth I want to cut based on that. Now I can begin cutting the mortises with the Amana Tool 46106-K half-inch upcut bit. There's a bearing that runs on the inside of the template on the template holder that allows me to accurately cut these out. The Panarouter cuts at a 2-to-1 scale, so everything on the template holder is twice as large as what it will be when it's cut. Once the mortise is cut, I can unclamp and clamp in a new one, ensuring the face that I labeled bottom is always in contact with the table. For the most accurate possible joints, it's important to make sure that the bottom surface is always referencing the table to take any error out of the equation. I can now quickly batch out all of the mortises needed for this cart. Using the Panarouter without the dust hood is fairly messy, but luckily Panarouter has a great dust hood, and with that on there, it makes this a very clean machine and takes away the vast majority of the dust and chips that are created. So now we can do our mortises on the side of these pieces, and we can get that set up just a little bit differently. So we'll go through and get all of that cut. You can see how the scale moves down at the bottom as we're moving the Panarouter into the cut. With all of the mortises done on the edges, we can now move to the mortises in the middle of the material. And for those, I simply line up the center line of where the mortise needs to be with the center line on the table. After cutting all of the mortises out, it's time to work on the tenons. I move the bearing to the outside of the template to begin cutting the tenons after installing the swing stop. The swing stop slides into the T-slot table and moves on a pivot, allowing you to position the workpiece up against the stop and clamp it down, then swing it out of the way before cutting. For the first piece, I put the bit up to the end of the stock and set the depth gauge to the length that I want the tenon. I'll move the bearing around the tenon template to cut the tenon. The tenon was a little too large to fit into the mortise, but the Panarouter templates have a slight taper to them, allowing you to adjust the fit of the tenons, so I moved the guide bearing slightly forward for a smaller tenon. After removing more material, I have a perfect fitting mortise and tenon joint and don't have to adjust anything else to get this exact same fit for the rest of the 14 tenons that I need to cut. As I mentioned before, without the dust collection hood, it's a pretty dusty job, but with the hood, it works extremely well, catching the vast majority of the dust and chips. You can see all of those chips all over me, but with that hood on there, it all goes right into the dust collection. The swing stop creates a quick workflow, and you're able to batch out tenons with ease. I accidentally cut a mortise in the wrong spot on 2 of the pieces, so we're going to turn it into a bit of a decoration. I clamped down some walnut to create a tenon to fill the hole. The tenon was cut, and I cut it off at the table saw. I added some glue to it and used a mallet to pound it into the mortise that I wanted to fill, and it fit absolutely perfectly. This would normally be a really sketchy thing to try to flush trim, but the micro-jig gripper with the adjustable support makes holding this securely incredibly easy. I used the 51420 1/4-inch flush trim bit on the SawStop router table to flush trim the tenon, and it worked perfectly and was made safe with the gripper. I then sanded it, and the Panarouter provided an absolutely perfect fit and made my mistake into a decoration. With that out of the way, I can now glue up the sides of the cart. Assembly on this is made easy as all of the joints fit together perfectly and create perfectly square corners. I love seeing how these joints come together and seeing everything go into the exact place that we wanted it to. With the sides and clamps, I wanted to add a bit of a roundover to the drawer divider through tenons to soften the look. I locked the router in place using the depth stops at the right spot to give a nice even roundover. Using the 49494 1/16 inch radius roundover bit, I'm able to run the bearing of the router bit along the edge of the material to soften it. This is an operation that would be fairly dangerous done any other way, but the Panarouter makes it easy. I can now begin assembling the cart. I'm using Titebond 3 wood glue here for its longer open time, allowing me a bit more time to get everything into clamps. The Bora parallel clamps worked great and really helped me get this all assembled and all of the joints fully seated. I let it sit overnight and removed the clamps the next day and gave the frame of the cart a bit of sanding. After that, I made an auxiliary table for the Panarouter to do the cuts for my drawer parts. I got everything centered with the table and brought the bit forward before tightening down. I used the center location on the template holder to lock the router into this location so it doesn't move while routing. I put my stock in place and brought the bit up against it so that I could find my 0 position. I brought one of the stop blocks up and was able to use the scale to set the depth of cut that I wanted. I set the bit height by adjusting the height of the template holder and tightened it down once I had the height needed. I can then run my stock through referencing off of the fence to keep things nice and square. The micro jig grip block helped me push things through nice and safely. This is the dado for the drawer bottoms. I ran the rest of the pieces through off camera, and I changed my setup a bit to route the rabbets on the side, and we have our drawer parts fitting really nicely. With all of the drawer parts cut, I'll assemble them using some Titebond 2 wood glue and brad nails. I'm using a square I cut and clamped to the table to help with the assembly. The rabbets and dados make assembling the drawers quick and easy. There are tons of different drawer joinery methods, but for shop projects like this, I really like this method as it makes a quick, strong drawer that will hold up to many years of use. The drawer bottom just slides into that dado that we cut, and then we can get the final piece of the drawer installed and brad nailed in place. We did that for all 7 drawers that we had, and everything turned out nice and square. I can then install the slides onto the drawers. I made a little jig to help with giving me a reference to butt the slide up against, and used a self-centering drill bit to drill out the holes in the right location. I aligned all the slides based on the center of the drawer, so I was able to pre-install the slides onto the side panels of the cart as well, using the same self-centering drill bit, using a guide to ensure they go on square. The drawer fronts were then cut down to final size over at the table saw. After sanding, they're ready for finishing with some Rubio monocoat. This drawer front has incredible curl in it, and it's always amazing to see it all pop when the finish is applied. I then put finish on the remaining drawer fronts, and off camera pre-finished the sides and frame of the cart, buffing the excess finish off after it has time to soak in. While the finish is drying, I'll get the top of the cart all glued up. I used the 18 and 24 inch bore parallel clamps with Titebond 2 wood glue for this. I glued the top up in 2 sections so that they would be able to fit through my Jet 13 inch helical head planer. I sent both pieces through the planer until they were planed down smooth and glued them back together off camera to create the top. With the finish all dry, I can install the sides of the cart. It's a nice tight fit, and I can screw it into the frame of the cart to hold it securely in place, and do the same thing on the opposite side. I installed some casters to the bottom of the cart to allow me to easily roll this around the shop. With that done, the drawers are now able to be installed. Those just slot right into the pre-installed slides on the sides of the cart, and they work and fit great. With finish pre-applied to the top, I can now get that installed. I'm using some Z-clips to hold the top to the frame and also allow for wood movement. To install the drawer fronts, first I'll install a temporary drawer pull with some painter's tape so that I can still get the drawer open. I set the drawer face and use playing cards to help set my spacing. I put as many as I could fit to make it tight, then I take the number of cards and divide it in half so that I can get equal spacing all around the drawer front. I'm going to be using double-sided tape to help with installing these, but I need to make the drawer sit just a little further out. I put a washer in the drawer slide to stop it from moving back any further, so the drawer front can sit flush with the drawer. I'm using 2 strips of X-Fasten brand double-sided tape, available on our website, to stick the drawer front to the drawer. This tape is super thin and holds extremely well. It's perfect for applications like this. I laid out my cards to get equal spacing, set the drawer front in, and pushed it against the double-sided tape. The temporary pull allows me to open the drawer, add a pier quick clamp, and drive in a couple of screws from the backside to hold it in place. These drawer fronts are all done, and we can move on to adding the handles. To do that, I'll make a quick jig to install them. I started by cutting a couple of pieces of scrap down to size on the SawStop table saw, using some Starbond medium CA glue and accelerator to attach everything together. It's perfect for jigs like this, as it is a strong hold and bonds almost instantly. I measured out and drilled the holes for the handle over on the drill press. With that done, I aligned the centers and again used the Starbond CA glue and accelerator to hold everything together. I put the jig on the drawer front and added a pier quick clamp to hold it in place while drilling my holes. I can then remove the jig and install the drawer handle. This jig definitely made short work of getting everything perfectly lined up, and I was able to use the exact same jig for the remaining drawers, and it got all of the drawer handles all perfectly lined up. I really like the way that these handles look. I think they fit the cart well and will hold up to many years of use in the shop. With that, the cart is now finished, and it is at the perfect height to use the Panta router and keeps everything off of my workbench. I absolutely love how this project turned out and really like the through tenons poking through. It definitely adds a different look to it. It truly looks like a piece of furniture in the shop, and to me, that is inspiring as this project has given me a ton of ideas for furniture for the house that I want to use the Panta-Router to make. The Panta-Router is an incredible machine that's very versatile. We will have videos in the future showing some of the other joints it's able to create. All of the tools used in this video are available on our website. Be sure to check it out there. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you love this type of content, be sure to subscribe right over here. And for more great videos, click right over here.